Let's begin with a look at how the markets performed. Firstly, we start with the European equities as at Friday, the 22nd of September, where the market almost had a negative clean sweep. The Euro Stoxx 600 closed at an all-share index of 453.26, down by 0.31%. London FTSE, the only positive, closed at an all-share index of 7,683.91, up by 0.7%. The markets in Germany saw the DAX close at 15,557.29, down by 0.9%, while the CAC 40 in Paris ended the week at 7,184.82, down by 0.40%. And finally, the IBEX 35 closed lower at 0.49%, with an all-share index of 9,502, being the last market closing in the negative as at 5 p.m. on Friday. Now to the Nigerian stock markets. At the end of Friday's trading session, a total of 1,002 shares in 6,370 deals were traded, corresponding to a market value of 4.35 billion naira. The current state market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 36.84 trillion naira. And finally, let's take a look at Wall Street as of 22nd September. Let's now take you to our top stories for the week. The newly appointed acting governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Olayemi Cardozo, has assumed duty in the new capacity pending a confirmation of his nomination for office. A statement from the CBN on Friday stated Cardozo assumed duty along with 4 deputy governors designate who were nominated alongside him, even as record-high inflation and uncertainty plagues monetary direction. Mr. Cardozo and the Deputy Governor designate deposed to the relevant oaths of office at a brief ceremony held at the bank's head office in Abuja. Now, in a move aimed at bolstering the financial stability of Nigeria's key energy companies, 10 Nigerian banks have joined forces to restructure Owando PLC's medium-term loan. The original agreement has been amended with an increase in the overall commitment. The restructuring aims to resculpt the repayment profile, extend the loan's maturity date, and update associated security details. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu held talks with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in New York, seeking to advance economic cooperation between the 2 largest economies in Africa. The 2 leaders met ahead of the United Nations General Assembly. Tinubu has so far embarked on Nigeria's boldest reforms in decades, scrapping a popular but costly petrol subsidy and lifting foreign exchange trading curbs. He is pledged to revive an economy struggling with record debt, anemic growth, and double-digit inflation. Now to South Africa, where the central bank kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged while signaling that borrowing costs are likely to stay higher to longer due to persistent inflation risks. The Monetary Policy Committee maintained the rate at a 14-year high of 8.25% for a second consecutive meeting. By October 2023, the Dangote Refinery is expected to begin refining diesel and jet fuel. According to Devakumar Edwin, Executive Director of the Dangote Group, the refinery will receive its first shipment of oil in a couple of weeks, with production set to begin in October 2023. Oil prices surged on Monday, with Brent trading near $95 a barrel as markets grappled with tight supply fares triggered by Saudi Arabia and Russia's output cuts, while greater optimism about a Chinese economic revival boosted prices. International benchmark crude Brent traded at $94.48 per barrel, a 0.59 gain from the closing price of $93.93 a barrel in the previous trading session on Friday. The American benchmark WTI traded at the same time at $90.61 per barrel, up 0.66% from the previous session's close of $92 per barrel. Both benchmarks climbed up 3% last night on tight global concerns. And now to China. Evergrande Group shares fell 25% on Monday after authorities detained some employees at its wealth management division. raising the possibility of a further investigation that could make matters worse for the real estate firm. The property developer is at the center of a crisis in China's real estate industry. Since late 2021, there have been a number of defaults that shook global markets and raised concerns of contagion. The company's stock has been off the market for 17 months as of August 28th. Now, the first piece of hardware from Apple's Wonderlust events is set to hit stores on Friday, with the iPhone 15 range making its debut. The phones have been available for pre-order for just under a week, but Friday will be the first opportunity for consumers to have their hands on the newest edition of Apple's flagship product. Also available is a batch of new Apple Watches. The iPhone 15 lineup starts at $799 and offers 4 models: the iPhone 15, Plus Pro, and Pro Max. The new phone will have a range of new features, and the premium models will introduce a material to the user experience. Now, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has backtracked on some of Britain's environmental commitments, saying the country must fight climate change without penalising the British people. Sunak says he's postponing a ban on new gas and diesel cars by 5 years. He adds that reaching net zero by 2050 is not possible, as it would impose an unacceptable cost on families in the UK. The news has drawn backlash from political opponents and environmental groups, as well as the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 5.25% after a knife-edge vote that is likely to signal the peak of borrowing costs after almost 2 years of rates rising. Thursday's decision sent the pound lower against the dollar, but boosted the shares of property developers following better-than-expected inflation data a day before. The bank's Monetary Policy Committee was split 5-4 in favor of leaving rates unchanged. Now, over the next 10 years, the Walt Disney Company plans to invest roughly $60 billion on its theme parks and cruise lines as it seeks to expand one of its more lucrative business sectors. The anticipated expenditure, according to the business, is almost twice as much as what it spent over the previous decade. The company's Disney parks, experiences, and products business continued to perform strongly, with sales increasing 13% in the third quarter of the fiscal year. Grocery delivery business Instacart has priced its initial public offering at the top of a marketed range to raise $660 million, in a market listing. The San Francisco-based company sold 22 million shares for $30 each on Monday. Instacart boosted its initial rank by 7% after chip designer Hub Holdings' successful first day of trading. Now, Sean Fain, president of the United Auto Workers, announced on Friday that barring any significant developments in the bargaining table, the union will expand its strike to include General Motors and Jeep manufacturer Stellantis. In the meantime, the UAW says it is making significant progress with Ford towards a new deal and will not expand the strike against the automaker. The U.S. Federal Reserve held interest rates steady on Wednesday, but stiffened a hawkish monetary policy stance that its officials increasingly believe can succeed in lower inflation without wrecking the economy or leading to large job losses. The Fed's benchmark overnight interest may be lifted one more time this year to a peak 5.50% to 5.75% range, according to updated quarterly projections released by the U.S. Central Bank. The Bank of Japan kept its ultra-loose monetary policy unchanged in a widely expected move on September 22nd. The bank's 9-member policy board decided to keep the short-term policy rate steady at 0.1%. It manages pledge to keep yields on a 10-year Japanese government bonds around 0%. It also keeps a hard cap of 1%. Now to Australia, where the Union Alliance on Friday called off strikes at Chevron's 2 major local liquefied natural gas projects, agreeing to resolve disputes that had threatened to disrupt around 7% of global LNG supplies. For Union Alliance and Chevron accepted proposals on pay and conditions from the country's industrial arbitrator for the Gorgon and Wheatstone LNG facilities, and workers suspended strikes that began 2 weeks ago. The agreement ends a wage fight that has riled global gas markets for 6 weeks and sent LNG prices up as much as 35% in August. And that's it for the Market Roundup and top stories this week.